Me time, all time. So I think I may have drastically underestimated how difficult this whole video every day thing was going to be. I'm on day, what, 3 out of 31 days in July, which means I'm 9.7% of the way there. Ouch. I haven't slept really since Monday night, and it's now 12:40 on Wednesday night, and I still have to edit all of this before I can go to bed. Yeah, maybe the 7-minute long complicated historical research video on day 2 wasn't the best idea, but hey, at least I got to make that Bill Murray joke. I bet that joke killed in the 45 to 54-year-old female demographic, which YouTube tells me is 5.4% of my audience. So hey, that was for you. I also have a bit of a cold right now. My teeth feel like they've just finished a bunch of push-ups and the roof of my mouth is mysteriously periodically bleeding, so if you have any suggestions on that, that would be great. If at some point in my whining just there you went, oh, I feel slightly sorry for you for being such a complete idiot, that is sympathy. And that's what we're talking about today. Now, your sympathy for my stupidity is slightly different, if only on an annoying semantic level, from empathy, in that you are recognizing my situation and providing snarky compassion, but you probably don't have any directly comparable experience to base that compassion off of. Now, this sort of sympathy that we've been talking about is sort of a base level sympathy that I'm sure you're more than familiar with, and it's not really what I'm interested in. Let me tell you a story. So when I was in high school, a lot of the papers I was assigned involved persuasively arguing some point of view or another on an issue. It was usually things along the lines of, do video games cause violence in children? Is it worth it to go to college? Does the ultimate fate of the universe trivialize human endeavor? You know, basic stuff. The way I, and near as I could tell everyone else, went about these sorts of projects is that at the beginning I decided my stance on the issue, and then I went into research trying to prove and affirm my position. And by research, I mean I would Google something along the lines of why video games never ever cause violence in anyone, no, not even once. And when I only searched for evidence that supported my predisposed opinion, it was easy for me to conclude that I was absolutely always right, unconditionally, and that my opposition was irrational, stupid, intentionally malicious, or usually all three. And you know what I'd think when I saw something that challenged my worldview? Better not put that in my paper. It's so natural for us to throw out contradictory information. Without it, the answers are so much more clear-cut and high school papery. Now, what I was unintentionally doing with these papers is called a one-sided argument, which is a kind of informal fallacy where you only include evidence that supports your position and deliberately exclude evidence that negates it. Now, we're actually going to talk a little bit about formal logic and fallacies later on this week in a video about Aristotle, but for now, I think it's pretty readily apparent why this kind of argumentative style is really only persuasive to people who already agree with you. And nowhere is the one-sided argument more frequently used and abused than in politics. And I would say, as a self-avowed hippie liberal socialist scumbag, that liberals are very often even more guilty of this than conservatives. When I believe in something, and especially when I believe it passionately, it's often very difficult for me to imagine a reasonable opposition. And it's tempting to just dismiss them as irrational or stupid. But as a rule, people almost never act totally irrational, and it's even more rare that they act out of intentional malice. I think the problem is a basic lacking of the ability to sympathize with the opposing worldview, to understand why they think the way that they do. I think it's impossible to have any kind of truly informed opinion without first understanding the opposing argument, and why it's persuasive to so many people, so many good, intelligent people. For how can anyone possibly know that they reached the best possible stance without first weighing each argument thoughtfully and independently? I think the essential problem of politics is a basic lack of sympathy. So I'd like to try a little exercise with all of you, if that's okay. New game. Here's the idea. Pick an opinion that you have, and preferably a political one, that you believe in passionately, fervently even. Now take the exact opposite argument and try and argue it as persuasively as you can, in such a way that you think you could convince a reasonable, intelligent, and kind undecided person. This may be harder than you think it'll be, because it often requires a total switch of worldview. It basically requires you to sympathize with what you cannot possibly empathize with. Once you've done this, post your arguments in the Arguing the Other Side thread on the new games board in the forums, link in the description. If you've got the time, feel free to make a lengthier argument. It is, after all, very hard to be persuasive to a hostile audience in only a few words. Now, I don't expect this exercise to change anybody's opinion on the issue that they care about, but it's my hope that this will at least clarify why some people think differently. Because in the end, they, like you, are just trying to do the right thing. Let's try it out.